Well, God bless you one and all, and welcome back to the Bishop's Corner. And of course, my name is Bishop Dr. Herbert N. Scott, the Chief Prelate of the Liberty Hall Cathedral of Praise Ministries headquarters, being right here in the heart of Brooklyn. And certainly we want to give God praise and glory for the man of God himself, Philip Reed, who happens to be the visionary for the Bishop's Corner. And he is affectionately known as Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil, job well done, young man. And certainly tonight, we do thank God for the panel that we do have tonight. We are blessed in having once again the lovely, the delightful Dr. Dolores Ben that is with us. Woman of God, certainly it is indeed a pleasure to have you on the Bishop's Corner. And of course, we want to thank God for the man himself, the Apostle Lucien Rojas. God bless you, man of God. Certainly a pleasure to have you once again on the Bishop's Corner. At this time, let's go up north to Connecticut, where we thank God for the man of God himself, Bishop Dr. Neville G. Wolliston, that's with us. Certainly, man of God, it's always a pleasure to have you gracing us with your presence on the Bishop's Corner. And of course, once again, we want to thank God for our guest of honor that we are so happy to have once again on the Bishop's Corner, Lowe's Moore. God bless you, sir. Always indeed a pleasure to have you on, and we thank God for the wisdom and the knowledge that God has certainly blessed you with. And tonight we have a very, very special program for you. Subject matter, the gospel truth on guns, violence in churches, schools, and public places. Oh, yes. Let me just read two of the questions before we should go on into them tonight. Number one, public shooting has been in the news a lot lately. What effect will the new gun laws have on how we think about hosting church services? Question number two, if more people are allowed to carry guns, what effect do you think it will have on our communities? And let me say this, ladies and gentlemen, before we should even begin our program tonight. We're told that a gunman killed 7 people and wounded dozens more during a 4th of July celebration in Highland Park, Illinois on Monday. Not just that, but hear this. The deadliest mass shooting in the country so far this year was the massacre in which 19 children and 2 teachers were killed at an elementary school in Texas on May the 24th. It happened 10 days after 10 people were shot and killed in a supermarket in Buffalo, New York. Hear this. The Gun Violent Archive have counted more than 300 mass shootings through early July. Over 300. Question, where does it go from this? Over 300 from January through early July. The first question I want to put to you is this. Public shootings has been in the news a lot lately. What effect will the new gun laws have on how we think about hosting church services? Let me put that first question to the lovely Dr. Dolores Ben. I'm sure that she definitely has the answer, and we want to make sure that she's a part of Congress.
Thank you for your confidence, Bishop. Greetings, my fellow pastors and bishops and saints, those who took the time to be here with us this evening. It's a real great privilege for me, and I'm truly honored. I do believe, Bishop, that the laws that have just been passed will have a profound effect on the church. It will certainly not be church as usual. We are not going back to church as usual. First of all, the security and safety of our members has to come to the forefront. We have to have a greater sensitivity as to who comes onto our church premises. A heightened sense of alertness. We cannot just sit by anymore and just open up our doors and say, come on all in. We have got to have some kind of a restricted or monitored open door policy to our churches. You know, before you can just knock the office of the pastor, of the bishop, and you hear come in, and you can just go in and talk to the bishop. Because of these new laws, we have got to put and implement new safeguards to ensure the safety of our people. The FBI, they identified churches as what we call soft targets. That means we are almost like sitting ducks.
Yes.
And we, the term watch and pray has literally taken on a new meaning for us.
Amen.
Because we have got to literally watch and pray with these new gun laws that have been passed, where they're saying it's your amendment, it's your right to carry these weapons. And if you're carrying the weapons, I'm assuming it's your right to use it as you deem necessary. So therefore, we have got to become vigilant. I believe that churches need to start looking at their security. If they don't have any form of security, they've got to begin to put together some form of a security team, so that they can oversee. I remember reading the book of Nehemiah, and he is one of the people I admire so much. Why? They were working the gospel with one hand, and they had that sword. They were working and they were praying and they were watchful. We cannot afford as a church to be nonchalant. We have got to cause our congregants, and that's education again, to become aware, to become alert. We have got to implement, whether we bring in the police department to train us in those shooter training sessions. We do it on the job. They do it in the schools. Why aren't we doing it in the churches? Should a gunman open the door and begin to shoot, what are we going to do? Just stand like little ducks and wait? Is there a plan? Is there a protocol that has been put into place where we can protect ourselves? One thing I love about Israel, and in reading about them in the Old Testament, and Bishop, I know this is your background, and I love to hear you talk about them, is there's a time that they would plow the land, and then there became a time where they would beat those plow spears into spears so that they can fight. We cannot afford to be like the ostrich, bury our heads in the sand, and everything else is for the grab. So I would just allow others to speak now, but I believe that it's not church as usual. We have got to watch and pray. We have got to put security in place to ensure the safety of the worshipers.
Well, woman of God, as you did say that the Lord told Peter to put up your sword. He didn't tell him to throw it away. He told him to put it up. Why? Because later on, you're going to need it. But let me ask you a question, woman of God. Should we then have armed guards on our church premises? How do you feel about that? Having armed guards on our premises?
Truthfully, I honestly don't have a problem with it, and I'll clarify that very quickly. We can have the armed security, like off-duty police officers. They do work. Even here in North Carolina, you see them, the very big churches. They employ them. They do a lot of traffic, and they do security for the church while they're worshiping. And I see it as a need. Dangerous times call for stringent measures. So I don't see a problem with having them on the outside. They can see, be alert, and spot impending danger before it gets to the doors. Okay, and it's on the outside of the church. It's not within. I'm an avid believer in God. He's my source, he's my strength, but he also said to be wise. He also said that we need, sometimes the children of the world respond with more wisdom than children in the house of God. And we have got to get up and use that wisdom that God has given us.
Then let me ask you one more question. What about having capable parishioners having guns?
Bishop, here's the thing. When a man gets saved, he can be a soldier. He can be a police officer. Amen. He can, it doesn't take away from who he is. I'm saved, but this is my profession. I'm saved, and I honestly believe, the most, and I'm going to invent a word, manliest man is a man in the house of God. Amen. Because he has the advantage of both worlds. He's a true man and he's God directed. So that makes him strong and wise and able to do it. And I know a couple of sheriffs that are men of God and they love God. And they cannot put their weapons down. If they're preaching for you, they would say, listen, I've got to have it because, that's my profession. I want to hear the word. They conceal it and they preach. The parishioners don't have a clue what's going on.
Well,
Bishop, I totally agree with Dr. Ben wholeheartedly. And I think every pastor, bishop, leader should do whatever it takes to make sure there's a sense of security. Because why should I come to your church if I don't feel secure? The preaching's nice, the praise team's awesome. I mean, love the bishop, but it's just not safe here. I mean, so we have to do whatever it takes to secure, to have a sense of security for our parishioners. We had an event, you were there, I think it was end of May. We had visible armed guards. We have, as Dr. Ben just mentioned, we have some of the men, parishioners that are in our assembly Sunday strapped, as they would say. Not everybody knows who they are, but we also do have an unarmed security personnel at the front, but the men inside, Bishop, this is not grandma's church anymore. This is not grandma's church. And so as Dr. Ben says, we've got to be wise. We have to use wisdom. I mean, don't we lock our doors? I live in the burbs, but I lock my door because I'm from the city. Everybody else got their doors open, not I. You know what I mean? So we've got to use wisdom.
Listen, the message there is armed and dangerous.
There you go.
Okay. The question is, public shootings has been in the news a lot lately. What effect will the new gun laws have on how we think about hosting church services? Bishop Dr. Neville Wolliston, man of God, how say you?
Yes, Bishop, I was thinking about this and I was just wondering, we have changed laws, but have we changed hearts? Have we changed minds? Whether it's the abortion issue, whether it's civil rights, whether it's gun rights and what have you, we have changed laws, Bishop. Is that enough? I think in addition to that, there has to be something more. And of course, the politicians don't have the answer. We were talking on the pre-show with Brother Lowe's, and he was so correct that it has to be love, but not just me loving you loving me in return. That, listen, we're going to do what's right. As I just mentioned, relative to our church services and parishioners being safe, it's a different day. I never dreamt, Bishop, that I would need to have armed security guards in my church watching the offering plate. And so then here's another question that someone might ask. well, if you're people of faith and you trust God, why do you need to have security guards? Well, it's kind of like, some of the high profile ministers or televangelists, they have armed guards. Are they less of people of faith? I mean, do they not have faith? I think they have faith and common sense. You know what I mean? I think it was Frederick Douglass in one of his quotes. He said, I prayed for 20 years and nothing happened until my legs started praying. That simply means when he got up, started doing something, because we kneel down and nothing wrong with that. But after you've knelt down and prayed for however long, do you just sit down or do you get up and do something? It's a different world that we're living in, and we can't be careless and callous. We can't just be complacent and nonchalant. We're dealing with real devils. In my mama's days, not that we don't have it now, we were dealing with demons that we couldn't see. Now these demons have legs and arms and AK-47s. What are we going to do? I mean, it's the question was, or one of the questions is, or the statement made is, it's just becoming a norm now, Bishop. It's a regular. We saw what happened a few years ago. Was it Charleston, down in South Carolina, I think it was, when 9 individuals were killed? As Dr. Ben says, do we now scrutinize everybody who comes to our churches? I've been to Africa a few times, bishops like yourself, and one of the biggest churches in Accra, Ghana, Bishop Duncan Williams, I thought I was going through TSA when I went to his church. You have security. You have metal detectors that everybody has to go through. Look at the responsibility this preacher have. 5,000, 10,000 people in his building, and all it takes is for one person to come through.
One person.
Guess what? Ministry could be done. Mission aborted. Oh, Bishop, we got to do right. As Dr. Ben says, no, it's a different day. It can't be business as usual. So yes, it's going to have a profound effect. And he taught me how to watch and pray. That we gonna do.
Let me ask you a question, men of God. Are certain communities they're more at risk for gun violence than others?
Oh, of course, not to stereotype, we do see it mainly not mainly, but primarily in the cities because of the different reasons, unemployment, and the list goes on and on. But look what happened in Buffalo, Bishop. This young man drove what, 200-300 miles? It wasn't even his community. He went to another community. So I really don't know the answer to that, but I'll just say, look, whether you're in the burbs or in your the hood, you've got to be vigilant.
You have to be vigilant. Well, it's been said that Black men are 13 times more likely than white men to be shot and killed. And just by hearing that, it gets you right here. It does. It gets you right here. I believe that as Black people, we should indeed get together. Let me say this, I'm speaking from experience right here in Brooklyn, New York, where I live. And I mentioned this like many, many times. When you go to a certain shopping area known as King's Plaza, a large place where hundreds and thousands of people go each day to shop. Out of every 10 people you see or you meet, 8 of them my color. If we were to boycott King's Plaza, they would go bankrupt. There is a power when we can come together. And I'm saying this from my heart, honestly. If we as Black folks can come together, we can turn things upside down. However, that may be another topic. But let me say this, that I want to put the same question to the apostle tonight. Man of God, public shootings has been in the news a lot lately. What effect do you think that these new gun laws will have on our churches?
Well, certainly more guns, more deaths, or more killing. Although they say guns don't really kill, it's people. But if the people don't have access to the guns, what they're going to use? And not just guns. I'm not talking about a rifle or a shotgun, but when someone have a military style AK, assault rifle, AR-15, they can do so much carnage and damage in seconds. So like I agree with and concur with all the panelists that spoke prior, where we have to change and make a shift in how we deal with things. And one of the things I always says is that faith and wisdom, they are not rivals. Faith and wisdom, they complement each other. Because I know the fanatics will say, God is my defense. The name of the Lord is a strong tower, the righteous run into it and they are safe. You know, and they say, well, you know, I don't need no guns, God will protect me. But we got to keep it real. And the time has changed. This is not the 60s.
You're muted. You're muted. You're muted.
Apostle, you're muted, sir.
When did I? Okay, sorry. How did that happen? All right. Yeah. So like I said, in 2 years ago, 18.4 million guns were sold in 2021. America has about 330 million people, and there are about 400 million guns in the hands of civilians. The most populated country in China has about 49 million guns. The second most populated country in the world in India, 1.3.5 billion. China has about 1.4 billion. Second to United States, 71 million guns. Do the math. They have about 4 times our population, and yet they have less guns. We have about almost 8 times the amount of guns that they have.
Wow.
And then you want to pass laws now for open carry.
Stupid.
In April, I was in North Carolina. I went to visit my nephews and nieces and went to one of my niece's house, and the young lady that was doing her hair took up a little purse and she said, I got my Glock here. I says, what? I'm not used to that in New York. She said, yeah, I walk with this thing. And she said, I purchased it legal. But I want to say that New York, which is the most populated city in the United States, is a different animal. You're talking about 8.8 million people. 3 million people take the subway, or million, how much take the subway every day? You talking about crowded subways with people have guns? I think the other countries are looking at America and say, what's wrong with these people? They're the richest country on earth, but what is wrong with these people? For example, Japan has 127 million people. The average deaths in Japan for the year, gun-related deaths, is about average of 10. I don't even think the policeman carries gun there. So we have gone crazy. We have run amok, and the gun thing. And again, they passed laws just recently. I think hear what it is. Hear what it is, and they was like, yeah, in 30 years nothing happened. Hear the law that passed. Stricter regulation with age group 18 to 20. The guy who killed those people on July 4th, he was 21. Red flag law preventing domestic abuse people to carry gun or get gun or buy gun. And what was the other one? Red flag laws. This thing needs to be banned. AR-15. The doctor said when someone gets shot by that gun, in Uvalde, they couldn't recognize some of the children. They recognized them by the sneakers.
Yeah.
They had to take the DNA. This thing is not for hunting a deer. And we're not saying take away your handgun or your rifle. These are war machine. It's a killing machine. And I don't know what will it take. And on top of that, they would have passed laws where it's open carry in all the states. So coming back to the church now, What are we gonna do? I had my just before the pandemic, Bishop Scotty was there when I had my 40th celebration. We had over 300 people, and two of my relatives, they had gun. They were law enforcement. They had gun. They were strapped, as Bishop Wolliston said. And you would never think, young black brothers, And today you have to be careful, man. Even looking over your shoulder, and you're not walking in fear. But when you go to church, you wonder if somebody deranged can walk in there with a gun, man, for real. Not with only the church, but the supermarket, the ball game, or whatever. So it's a different time that we are in, and maybe it might become a norm to have a guard in the vestibule, in the corridors, in the church, and in the foyer, with visibly with his gun, and we might have to pay for it or whatever. But we have to change the dynamics how we do things. Security might be a big in terms of ushering. I think security will be a major play in how we worship and do church in this 21st century.
Yes, sir. We were paying a guard $350 just to be there, an armed guard. And he was a big guy. I mean, very intimidating looking, you know what I mean? And so forth. Didn't exactly like it, but necessary, definitely. It was the Lord that said, put up your sword. Today, if the Lord was here, he said, put up your gun. Things really have changed. Okay, but now I believe that the man that's with us, he has the answer. Lowe's more. My friend, how say you?
Well, I agree 100%. And again, thank you for the opportunity to come on this evening. And I agree with 100% with what you guys are talking about this evening. And let me say this, but in that I agree with you, right? I believe that the church is late on this and long past due. We have been the churches have been at risk for a very long time. And because every youth agency, school, every kind of organization you can think of has a policy for safety and security. And, being in the Boys and Girls Club for 27 years, I mean, we had an open door policy, let anybody in. I mean, and it was successful for many years. We just trusted people, right? But in my first 2 or 3 years at the Boys and Girls Club, I was talking not only to the Boys and Girls Club, but talking to schools and churches as an elder in the church about safety. And when I first got my license for ministry, I noticed that when I was getting my license and they were doing the offering, in the Baptist church, and I realized that while they were bringing the money up, man, there was a gentleman there who walked up with them. It was one in the front, one in the back, and they were armed. Now this, you're going back like 30 years ago now, right? So this is, it may be new to some people, but it's not new to everybody. I mean, when you have successful ministries, right, and you want to keep those ministries safe, right? Because the first thing is I always say in the Boys and Girls Club, safety, security, fun, right? If there's no safety, no security, you ain't having no fun. Ain't nobody dancing in the aisle, ain't nobody speaking in tongues. I mean, if you looking around thinking somebody's gonna walk in your church, right? And so I think that a part of your manuals, policies and procedures, you have to sit down and really think seriously about what those safety and security procedures are, and how you're going to handle them moving forward. And again, this has nothing to do with faith, right? I mean, this has everything. I got 4 children, right? And just to let my children say, just go anywhere and just do anywhere and let anybody have my kids is just crazy, right? So, and my wife and I, we're protective, and we just don't allow our children to go anywhere. So if I'm going to protect my children, and you guys are bishops, pastors, apostles, right? And God is your assignment, right, is to equip the saints. A part of that equipping the saints is to protect the saints as well, right? And definitely today you have to be prepared. And this is crazy because you have in my small church, right? We have policemen there, and we've had training in our small church about active shooters. So we've had to make adjustments ourselves. And today, man, people get mad. People don't like what you preach. People don't, they don't like you, and it escalates with mental health issues, all other things that are going on, and you need to protect yourself. I mean, this is just the reality, and churches should be changed, right? And sometimes they say faith. They say faith is risk, right? Faith is risk, but we also have to be wise. You guys mentioned it earlier. You got to be wise, right, today, and make sure that you can protect your congregants, your members, because if something happens in your church, it changes your church forever.
Oh,
If it happens in the Boys and Girls Club, if I have one incident in the Boys and Girls Club, it changes it forever.
yeah.
One sexual act in the Boys and Girls Club closes your club. Your club is never really the same. And so you want to prevent this from happening, right? And you want to be much aware of this. And I think that you guys are so right. And you need to talk to the other churches out there and other pastors out there about how to set up, maybe, if you're in whatever the denomination, to look at this not just in the church, your church, but if you're a part of a denomination, how do you look at it in that globally inside your and come down with policies and procedures that will protect you guys.
Well, when I look at certain things, example, certain things does not happen in Europe. Mass shootings doesn't happen in Canada. Mass shootings doesn't happen in Germany. In China, not even in China, these things happen. In Africa, definitely not. So the question is, what is the key to stopping mass shooting? How would you answer that? Let me put that to the panel. What's the key stopping mass shootings?
Can I say real
Of
quick?
course,
I
please.
think Apostle mentioned earlier, and I was recently on a radio show with, of course, a different culture, and I happened to be one person from my culture on this radio show. They invited me on, and you know, I was the only person out of the 5 or 6 people that talked about, as the apostle stated earlier, there's no need for weapons of mass destruction. Weapons that just kill loads and loads of people. And he mentioned having a rifle, having a pistol. I don't like those things either. But I mean, if I got to have a gun out there, a rifle and a pistol, okay. But magazines that shoot per second, hundreds of rounds. I mean, there's no real need on our streets, in our communities with these types of weapons. And so I say I was the only one. All the other cultures were like mental health, right? And I do agree with them on aspects of mental health. There's some crazy, some sick people out there. But if they don't have access to the weapons, right, then you can't shoot anybody, and you shouldn't be able to just walk in at 18 or 21 Now we're gonna make it 21, right? But they're still going to get those, whether they're 18 or not. They'll figure out how to get those guns, right? And at 21, they'll figure out how to get those guns, and it's just very dangerous. And I'll say this last thing. I was just in North Carolina, and I was making a U-turn, and there was a gun shop right there. I was going to a restaurant, but it was a gun shop. But a couple of white guys behind me, they blowing a horn at me like crazy, right? And they were acting really wild. And where were they heading? They were heading to the gun shop, right? I mean, like, you get mad at me because I didn't turn the U-turn fast enough. And because you have a gun, you feel like, okay, you can impose that and take my life for that. And when you put when you put them in the hand of somebody, it's in your house, it's in your closet, you got it on your thing, you're gonna feel threatened, and someday you're gonna use that thing.
Anyone else like to chime in on that question?
I do agree with my brother Luz that we have to deny access. For that scenario, sir, my husband has a term he used for those folks. He called them powerful foolish. They carry a weapon and they become powerful foolish because they would use it. I honestly believe that we have got to take certain styles of weapons off the market. I have no problem with hunting. I have no problem with people wanting to have a firearm in their home for safety or protection. But I do have an issue with these high-powered instruments that are accessible to young people in particular, because when you do the math and the statistics, when you look at it, the young people who are causing or perpetuating these ills, they range from 18 to 26. That is crazy. That's our youth. What are we doing to them when we give them the access and say, don't use it? It's like taking one of these high-powered cars that goes from 0 to 100 miles an hour in 60 seconds, and then you tell them the speed limit is 35. So therefore, I believe that the key is to remove that access. And if I could just be really transparent, when I moved to North Carolina, my son-in-law came and got me. I said, where are we going? He said, Ma, I'm taking you to the gun range. I said, I never shot one of those things. He said, you're going to learn because he said, because this is a different time. It's a different era and in a different culture. So you need to learn. So I believe that we have got to be wise and change with the times so that we can be relevant and viable.
Dr. Ben,
Bishop Scott. Go ahead, Bishop.
Dr. Ben, I were going to come to your house without you knowing, but now that I know that you've been practicing, I ain't coming. Bishop, go ahead, please, would you?
Yeah, Bishop, I agree with Dr. Ben and Lowe's. I'm just wondering if the approach has to be different. Mm-hmm. It can't be the same thing over and over again. I was listening to one of the programs, and one of the mothers says, don't tell us to pray anymore, because that's all we've been doing. Don't tell us to pray anymore. I've lost a son, or I've lost a daughter. And all we keep hearing is pray, pray. She went as far as saying, don't even invite Al Sharpton. We don't want to see him, because that's the only time they're showing up. So I'm just saying the approach has to change. We can't be just going through the motions and defense. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an expert on the law, but I'm pretty sure there's one case, maybe one of the mass shooting cases, where they were suing the parents. I think the parent might have bought the gun for the young man or the son. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you remember that case yet. Yes. The parents are being sued. I'm wondering, I don't know the law, but I'm wondering if we probably should change the strategy and go after the gun maker. Why do you need a high-power rifle in the inner city or wherever. I mean, pistol, okay, gun, what have you, rifle, that's understandable. This is a machine for war.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if the strategy or the tactics should be changed where we go after these. I don't know, maybe they have the legal rights, and I guess they do, but I'm just saying something's got to give, Bishop. Okay, so here's a question. Who's next? What's next? Where?
Yeah, that's correct. Okay, and one of the things that they're saying is this, that guns don't kill. It's people who kills. And it's because of this thing they call mental illness. Well, does that mean that in the United States we have more mad people than in China, in Germany, in Canada, and in Europe? Think about it. Do we have more mad people here? Because we definitely have more killing.
Yeah.
Well, Bishop, one of the things that you have to look at is the NRA and the politics behind the gun industry.
Man of God, you mean politics. Politics, not politics.
It's
politics.
Absolutely. It's money and power.
Of course, of course.
And, I mean, can we fight this giant? I'm sure there's a way, but we've got to, like you said, come together to make it happen.
And many of these Republicans do have investments in NRA. And that's why we have certain laws that's being passed. Trust me. Okay, hear this. Question I want to put to all of you is this. Should we be talking then to our children about guns? Remember that our kids will be leading the way soon. So should we be talking to them now about guns?
I think we should do like Dr. Ben's son-in-law did. Take him to the range. I think the answer is yes, Bishop.
Yes.
We live in a different world. It's yes. It's yes, yes, and yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes.
I'm in agreement with Bishop Wolliston. Listen, we have got to teach them, and we have got to teach them well. When I was at the range, and I've gone many times, you see young people. You see a lot of young people, and they're of the different persuasions. And they're teaching them how to aim, how to fire, whether they hunt or whatever they do with the knowledge, but they're teaching them. I believe that we have to teach our children not only about guns, but about gun safety. The importance of understanding the power of this weapon. And when it's fired and that bullet penetrates, that there's, based on where it strikes you, there's little that you can do. So they would be careful so that they would be safe with these weapons. I honestly believe knowledge is power. And I believe that children should be taught the proper way to handle the weapon and safety in handling weapons.
Bishop Scott, not to change the subject, but I think Lowe's probably can speak more to this in the sense that a lot of our Black kids, young Black men, they don't have access to legal guns because of records and because of getting involved with drugs or stuff. And so there's, once you have a record, I mean, forget it, and so it's a disservice to a lot of our inner city kids who probably would legally want to own a gun, but because they've had some issue with the law or they're on probation, and so then they go the illegal route. So that's something that needs to be addressed also. Everyone should have the right, but if you have a record, if you mess yourself up, guess what? You've lost that right, and then you go the illegal way.
Okay, Lowe's, how say you?
During the time of the pandemic and the social justice problems that we were having here in America, man, and we're talking about Black Lives Matter. And, always the question in my mind, and nobody really wants me to bring it up because we're trying to change things nationally or globally, right? And I always say, well, does Black Lives matter to us, right? And the thing is, while we're talking about mass shootings, right? And while we're talking about these weapons of destruction, still in our community every single day, we're shooting each other. And we have, if we can address the issue locally, we can move to a greater place. if we can address the problems that we're having with guns in our own community, and we're tired of getting illegal guns in the hands of our young people, how are they getting there, right? If we can address those issues, and why are we shooting each other? Do we hate each other that much that we have to continue to gun each other down and drive by? I was just talking to my cousin. He's in Charlotte, and I was asking about the situation in Charlotte. He was just saying last week, before he came up to New York, you know, they were doing these drive-bys shooting people out. They're not even waiting for people to come out the house to shoot them. They just shooting into the house and killed a 2-year-old kid sleeping in the bed. Right? So I'm saying, like, yeah, there's mass destruction. Yeah, there's all the mass shootings, but right in our own neighborhoods, we're not solving the problem right in our own neighborhoods of us killing and shooting each other. You know, and so if you can start at the ground, right, and we can cause things to stop in our own communities. I mean, you were talking about New York, right, and Chicago is crazy, and LA, right in our own local neighborhoods. We're dealing with these issues of guns, right? They're not using guns with all the magazines. They're using regular guns and just shooting down kids, drive-bys, innocent people getting killed, right? And that's a thing that I think, in terms of the black church, right, in our local communities, we need to address that there, as well as what's happening there. We need to support what everybody said here tonight. But we need to, after we get off here, is how does the church impact the local community in regards to guns violence and the violence.
Let me ask you this. We're not condoning killing, whether it's in our neighborhoods or mass killings, but would you agree that the reason behind killing in the hood is different from the mass killings that we see? Would you agree with that or no?
Yes, it is. I mean, death is death. I mean,
true.
At any level, nobody wants to see anybody die.
There's a different reason why two black brothers are shooting at each other, as opposed to whoever comes from 200, 300 miles to shoot up a parade.
It's totally different, right? But I'm saying is that in order for us to get the picture about mass shootings, right, we have to address the issues that we have right here locally, right? And because when those mass shootings happen, man, our young people are not even moved by it. I mean, they see this they seeing people getting shot every day, drive by every day. I'm in Mount Vernon, Westchester, New York, 5 minutes, 10 minutes away from the Bronx. So we hear this every single day, and our kids are just they're not even sensitive to it anymore. Oh, such died. Yeah, okay. Oh, such died. You know, and I just recently, we just won another state championship in Mount Vernon, basketball. We had celebrated it, had a parade, went out to the city hall. Mayor celebrated us, right? And we're not even talking. We're just talking about violence, right? And not even guns. A young cheerleader, one cheerleader stabs another cheerleader on the JV team, and she died right there after the celebration.
Wow.
So and this is happening every day, and we load up the bottles the next day.
Yeah.
Right. And we all go there and stand around them. Right. And we're all mad.
Mm-hmm.
And we're mad that moment until the next one. Right. Because once that's over, we march.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But what are the answers? What are the solutions to solving the crimes? This violence of guns and knives and violence in our own communities. You know.
If I may say something, and I'm gonna say a statement right now, and let me know if you agree with this statement. There are people that don't want things to change because gun violence impacts some people more than others. There are races out there, and the gun violence that we see today happening in the United States of America, it affects us Black more than our white counterparts. Would you agree with me?
Yes.
Some people don't want that to change. Because the more they can get rid of us, it's the better they feel. Think about it. Think about it. Okay? Because really, this gun violence affects us more.
Bishop,
than
I'm confused. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but pray for me. Here's the deal. We can send a man to the moon or rove to Mars, whatever. We can't solve this problem.
They can't
solve this problem.
They don't want it to be solved. They don't want it to be solved because who's been hurt by it? Mainly us, African Americans, the immigrants that comes here. We're the ones that really, I guarantee you, if more of our white counterparts were being shot, this thing would have been solved a long time ago.
Sure.
How say you?
Totally agree.
It makes you think, doesn't it? But here's this question. How can we prevent school shootings? Because remember now, we have our little ones and we all have children. And if not, the kids are grown, but we have grandchildren. How can we prevent this in our schools?
Put prayer back in schools. Could start there.
But they don't want to hear thou shalt not kill. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to see it even in the courts. Thou shalt not kill. There's a spirit. Think about it, people. There's a spirit behind it. How say you? Talk to me.
Wow. That is a big deal because our children are our seed. And if we destroy our seed, we don't have a generation to come. I believe that we have to have better security in our schools, whether it be primary school, whether it be elementary school or the high school. I believe that we have got to begin to change our mindsets and do things a little differently where our children are protected.
Dr. Ben, I agree with you. I would add to that, we call our country or nation a Christian nation. I mean, that's probably up for debate right now because there seems to be, even let's talk about our churches like we did a moment ago, there used to be a fear of God. You and I, we go back to the old school, how we were raised. Certain things we wouldn't do or even be associated in a church because you had such a reverence, such a fear. A man will come in off the street and take his hat off. He'll put his cigarette out on the sidewalk and grabs it when he goes back in. There used to be a fear for God and a fear for the church. And I think we have lost that fear. It's easy to say there's no God. I don't believe in God because here's the deal. If there's no God, and you don't believe in God, then there are no rules from God that you need to live by and adhere to. So the easiest thing is, ain't no God, ain't no God. Because once there's a God, then there are rules and there are commandments. So I think we've lost that fear. I mean, children are most vulnerable. The elderly are most vulnerable. As Lowe says, death is death and we're not condoning. But it's different when two drug dealers are shooting it out or have turf war. We're not agreeing with that. But when you come to little children or a church and the elderly, the most vulnerable, and we can't protect them, are you telling me now the answer has to be armed guards or TSA security systems? I mean, and what next? Would each child now have a personal guard to go sit by them in school? I mean, just imagine, where's this thing going? We've lost our fear of God. And this is what happens. Talk about prayer back in school. Okay, so they've overturned Roe versus Wade. Would this be next? Are they going to put prayer? Because I'm ready to cheer them on. But as I said earlier, it's not just a change of laws. It's got to be a change of hearts. It's going to be a change of mind. And that's most difficult. You can change laws, Look at slavery. You can change laws. Then you have segregation. Then you have, the list goes on. We need to change the minds and hearts if there's going to be real change.
And that's where the gospel comes on in. And that's a thing that man does not want. Question is this, what does Congress need to do to prevent mass shootings? What does Congress have to do to prevent mass shootings? Can they do anything?
Do they want to do anything?
That's the question.
You said it early, Bishop. A lot of these men, they're invested in the NRA.
That's it.
Do they want to do anything? I wish evil on no one, but I think until it reaches home or gets very close to home, because what have they done with these laws that they just passed? It's just a little Band-Aid. It's just a little, right, because there's an outcry. Now you have bipartisan support for what? A little Band-Aid, a little, all right, let's move it from 18 to 21. Well, like you said, the young man, he's 21.
Bishop, they did not even move it from 18 to 21. It's still 18-year-old could still buy a AR-15. They just have a background check. They just do a little background. It's like crumbs. Listen, exactly. most of the mass killing in this country were young white men. Preferential use of weapon, the AR-15, semi-automatic assault weapon. Now we talk about arming the teachers and arming the school. You arm a teacher with a revolver and a guy coming with an AR-15. I mean, do the math. Really and truly, you don't stand a chance. I mean, that thing sprays. How many a magazine can give out? I think I forget how much. I checked it up. How many shots can fire in seconds? You would one little handgun. Really and truly, guys, the policeman in Uvalde didn't even want to go inside.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He was scared because of the weapon that the man had. And I'm saying, why Clinton, when he was in president, they had a ban on assault rifle from 1990, and that was overturned. The Republicans didn't want to fix this man, and here the excuse, here the hypocrisy. It is mental. Yeah, mental.
Japan is mentally ill too.
Yeah.
They had 10 deaths for the year. My friend, the problem is guns.
Yeah.
400 million guns in America. You know what's the second distant? India with 71 million guns. We have about 4 times more than them, and they have 4 times more the population. Look, I never owned a gun. The first time I shot a gun was 10 years ago. I went with my friend to South Carolina. In his mother's backyard, he put a water bottle on top of a stump. Guys, he's a hunter, he shoots. My first shot, boom! That water bottle exploded. I smelled the gunpowder. I felt a rush. I felt the adrenaline. I now see why people don't want to give up their guns. It's addictive.
Power. It's the only little power they got.
But I never own a gun. I make a joke the other day to my wife. I said, I'm getting a gun. So where you gonna keep it?
in the closet, under the bed.
Let me ask the panel a question. Is there anyone besides Dr. Ben that does have a gun?
Well, she's in North Carolina, you see. We in New York.
Yeah, she got to protect herself.
Yeah,
Oh, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I think
Okay,
the love of money is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
If the guns could make no money, right, we wouldn't have any guns. So our biggest problem is, as long as they make the kind of money it's making, you can put all the rules in, but the person with the money has the power.
It's true.
And that's the bottom line when it comes down to it. And I mean, we can say a lot of what I call maybe some religious things, but this is just we're in a terrible we're just in a terrible situation that we don't have a whole lot of control over.
Yeah.
And it's a real sad day. To when it didn't when I heard the 19 kids and the 2 adults got shot. I mean, I didn't even want to think about it. I seen it and I just didn't want to think about it. And somewhere down about 5 days later, man, I just I was looking at my grandkids and I was thinking like, wow, that I mean, for somebody to go into elementary school and just take the lives of 19 young people, man. I mean, my heart just broke when I started thinking about the parents and grandparents and the brothers and the sisters. And I mean, I just started thinking about that. I mean, now, and that's just bad. I mean, we're in a sad day, and they're not trying to get rid of the guns. Bottom line.
Well, they added more. They want to add more guns.
Right, they want to add more, but right now their mind, for a lot of people, their mindset is that, we've been saying this for years. One day, black folks gonna get to a point, man, and they're gonna remember. They're gonna remember, and they're gonna come and get us. I mean, like I'm like, wow, okay, we just trying to make it here. We just trying to become successful here. And we're not thinking about run. At least I'm not thinking about running around killing other cultures. I'm not thinking about that at all. But because that's just who we are.
Because, Brother Moore, a guy with a knife, how many people can he kill without somebody wrestling him? A guy with an AR-15, you gotta run for cover. Even the policemen are running. I mean, what's wrong with America? Like Bishop was said, we could send people to the moon, we could do the internet thing, we could make electric cars. What's wrong? What's wrong? And when you see the mass shooting in the schools, and Bishop Wolliston rightly said, it's wrong if 2 guys on drugs shooting each other. Yes, a stray bullet could kill somebody. But when you go to the grocery store as an elderly to buy a cupcake for your birthday, or you kiss your daughter and she went to school with the bus, or you in your house of worship praying, and somebody come in there and kill you. Come on, when 2,900 people were killed in the World Trade Center, we got mad. We said we will smoke the Taliban out. We spent how much years in Afghanistan? How much billions and money? And right here, this sickness is in our backyard, and we ignore it. And you would think when you hear these children got killed, and these senators and these Congress people have grandkids and kids, you think their heart will somehow move.
Yeah.
I mean, they are lying to your face and telling you, well, we got to get some more money to spend on the mentally ill.
Yeah.
America is not the only country with mentally ill people.
Maybe they have more.
Probably. Exactly.
Apostle, you're totally right. Go ahead, Doc. Go ahead.
No.
My question would have been this, and I'm asking the question of us as believers and leaders in the church. I put it real blunt. Where is our power? What do you think about that? What type of power do we as believers possess that we could change or revolutionize this gun issue? Do you think it's possible that we can rise up, as Bishop Scott was saying, if we can get together, if we, this iron that sharpens iron, if we can get together, do you think it's possible that we can affect change as a church?
Well, I mean, just before I got on the call, I was thinking about this, that I really believe we are we're about to give birth to a great change. And I believe that God wants to show himself really real in this time. And I believe we're going to experience that churches, we were talking about it early, but this is different when the kingdom comes,
Mm.
right? And when we start to not talk about the kingdom, but to manifest the kingdom, to manifest that power you're talking about, is going to be the real key. And the question is, do we believe there is more? Do we believe that we are the ones who are called to do that more? To believe God in a place and in such a way, man, that God manifests himself here, that signs, wonders, and miracles start to manifest in the kind of love of God that comes, man, that hasn't been recognized, that we are in this mysterion, this mysterious part of our lives that God's going to download to us, the strategies that's necessary and come in power that will manifest in this time. And I believe that God he's ready to do that. I've been saying everybody's been saying for a long time, we're waiting for the manifestation of the sons. No, I believe we are the sons that we haven't manifest yet. Right. And it's time for us to believe God and to manifest the kind of power that you were talking about. It can be done, but it's going to be different in the way we've been practicing over these centuries. God wants to say, okay, well, you're doing it. How can we do this together? How can we be in a co-laboring relationship where I download these things and I show myself and the glory of God begins to show itself and the kingdom begins to come, right? And God shows himself out at this time. And I believe that we're going to have to spend more time meditating and believing the things that we're preaching every day, and they need to manifest today.
One of the
Moses,
things
I totally agree with you, but let me ask all of us, do you think what is really needed is a voice? Let's say we saw the Martin Luther King Jr. or the Nelson Mandela or Gandhi or Haile Selassie, whoever. Do you think that's and I get the togetherness, I get all of us working together, downloaded. Do you think that's what it really needs? Or those who have, let's say, the voice, should they be more vocal and use it? For instance, not to change subjects, but we heard our brother down in Georgia a few days ago talking about the tithe thing. And I'm saying every pastor going to have to do damage control next Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every pastor is going to have to, because there's a voice that puts something out there, and then it's going to have a rippling effect.
Yes.
So I'm questioning, is that what it's going to really take, or should that be the approach? Just
what I've noticed, so Bishop Wolliston, is this: that every voice that stands out, okay, trust me, they don't live too long.
True.
They do not live too long.
Well,
I mean,
including Jesus.
Including Jesus.
Including Jesus.
Well,
And
I'm going to mention something that we talked about before we started, and something that I seen during the social justice Black Lives Matter, right? And I had mentioned that other cultures, it wasn't just us marching, right? It was Asians, Mexicans, whites, and you seen a rebellion among young white people about questioning the past of their ancestors.
Yeah.
And arguing with their parents about what what you've been teaching me has been wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
And I believe that, see, we're talking here, right? As African Americans, we're talking here. As Black people, we're talking here. But if you remember Selma, right, when Dr. Kingdom was marching, and he put out a call, right? He put out a call for every Christian, every minister, so forth and so on.
Yep.
We need your help. And then
Yep.
they got beat up marching down there, and all of a sudden, the Jewish priests and the Catholic the Catholic priest and the Jewish pastor came down there, and they end up getting hurt in return. Matter of fact, they even died in return. That's when it changed, right? When all the other cultures, when we talk about the body of Christ, we're not just talking about us.
Yeah.
That's
I think when there's an awakening of the body of Christ, all race, creeds, color, stand up and be the children of God they have been called to be, we're going to see real change. Right? We can't do it alone. There are white Christians and, Spanish. They're all different types of children of God out there. And when that body comes together, now the power you've been talking about is when that body comes together.
When
When
We
the,
can
that
forget the
diversity.
evangelicals.
Well, we can forget them, but we know that God can change them also.
That's true. That's true.
we only
Right.
have approximately 17 minutes left. I would like to just touch on question number 2, which states, if more people are allowed to carry guns, what effect do you think that will have on our communities? Dr. Ben, woman of God, how say you?
I think the effect that it would have would be so far-reaching. First of all, I believe people will become very fearful. If they cannot determine that the church is the safe haven that it should be, where I could come in and kneel down and worship without fear of being taken out, my children could come in. Imagine if someone were to come into my church and they were to begin to shoot, they would annihilate 2 and 3 generations of my generation. There'd be no seed left. If I can't have that confidence, there will be fear. Church attendance will decrease tremendously. We're going to have difficulty securing and ensuring that people can come to worship without fear. What we will need to truly implement security plans and let it be known among the congregants that, listen, this is how we are going to all stay safe. We have got to annihilate fear. We cannot afford to allow fear to cripple us so that we don't move forward. The enemy is a strategic planner, and he knows if he can make us afraid, we will not move. But perfect love casted out all fear. We can overcome. So I honestly believe if we these shootings, it can affect the community. We'll have fear, and to alleviate that, we must put appropriate plans in place to assure our congregants that you can come to worship, that you will be safe, and that we would still enjoy God. I would look at it like this. There are certain neighborhoods that you can go into and feel relatively safe. If I want to get my hair done, I will choose a hairdresser in an area that I feel relatively safe. So I could sit back and, I don't have much left now, but at least I could get it done. If I go into an area that it's not so safe, and at any point in time, you can hear gunshots in the street, chances are I'm not going to do that. But we in the church, and we have got churches in the suburbs, we have got churches in the hood, we have got churches all over, they're believers. We have got to ensure their safety.
I agree with you, woman of God, but let me ask you this question. Our governor, I believe that she assigned certain restrictions that guns will not be able
haven.
to be, carried certain places. Do you
Yes.
think that that'll work? Because if people really want to get them in, can't they get them in?
Sure.
Well, I'll answer that by saying this. When you travel on the streets, you see different sign postages telling you the speed limit. How many people drive the speed limit?
Not I.
Exactly. You've got 35 miles an hour. When you look at your speedometer, you're going 50. Okay. If people want to do something, they will do it. You can always put laws in place, but the important thing about a law, as far as I think, is to be able to enforce that law and ensure that it is upheld to. And if they don't have the system in place to uphold that law, it doesn't work. It's just going to be words on paper.
Words on paper is correct. Question number 2, if more people are allowed to carry guns, what effect do you think that will have on our communities? Apostle, how say you?
It's very simple, Bishop Scott. Like I said, 2 things, access and opportunity. When they had this craze with crack, they had the crack. If you couldn't get the crack, if you couldn't get the opioid, if you couldn't get the heroin, more guns, you got to get more security. It's the gunfight at OK Corral. More guns is more killing.
Yeah.
More guns is more killing,
Yeah.
more shooting, So I think the problem is, and I say that over and over again, it's the guns. It's the accessibility of the AR-15. Listen, the killing at Udale in Texas, the killing at Buffalo, the killing at the last recent 4th of July were all young men that had access to these guns. Let them do it with a knife or whatever. When you give them access and opportunity, that's where the problem comes in. So more guns is not the answer. You say, well, the good guy with a gun versus the bad guy with a gun. No, more guns is more shooting. More guns is more killing. More drugs is more people overdose. More is more. And we don't need more. We already have 400 million guns in the hands of civilians. Why do we need more?
Makes sense. Thank you much. Bishop Wolliston, how say you, sir?
I just think very simply, Bishop, I agree with Apostle. Dr. Ben spoke primarily to the church aspect of it. But, like Apostle Rojas says, it's going to be chaos. It's going to be, why do I need to fight you now or even argue with you? I just shoot you and let the chips fall where they may. Nobody's going to think. Just imagine everybody or most everybody got a gun in the hood or wherever, and they get into altercation. Well, how many times have we seen this happen? They just get mad and shoot. They just get angry and think about the repercussions later. They don't think about 20, 30 years in jail, just think about instant gratification. We grew up, Bishop, fighting with fists.
Hey, Bishop Wolliston, I don't know if you ever took the subway in New York City. It's
not
over
too
a million
often.
people
Don't
take it
care
every
for
day.
it either.
Could you imagine a car jam-packed with everybody strapped?
Yeah. Like you said, more guns, more chaos. But somebody benefits though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Makes sense. Okay, let's hear it this time from our friend Lowe's. How say you, sir?
Yeah, I agree with everybody. I mean, this is not a good deal.
No.
I mean, you can't give everybody access to guns. I mean, if you're in your home and somebody breaks in and you don't have access to the gun, you're just trying to figure out what to do, right? But if you know that there's a gun in there, you're going to find that gun and you're going to do something with it, right? And so if you give people access to it, and I think the apostle said earlier, man, that he shot that gun, and there's an addiction, there's a drive that goes with that once you shoot that gun. And I just remember a little kid, I loved BB guns, man. I couldn't wait to get to North Carolina and shoot that BB gun, right? and I pump it and shoot it and pump it and shoot it. Couldn't wait to take me to the store to get these BBs. And I had never shot anything, right? But there was a bird on the fence. I'd been trying to shoot all day. He kept firing back there, and I'll never forget the feeling, right? That when I shot it and it just stopped and dropped. I was like, oh my God. And I said, oh, give me some more BBs. Where's another bird? Right? And all day I was hunting birds, right? Because there's an addiction that comes with when you start shooting. You know, and it becomes an easy way out. No more communication.
Right.
No more how do we handle this?
Mm-hmm.
How do we solve this problem? How do we solve this issue? It becomes like, okay, we know I'm taking it in my own hand. I feel threatened. Right? And the only way I can deal with that threat is to use that gun. And it is a bad thing to have more guns on the street.
Bishop Scott, just to rewind for a quick second, and I think Apostle called out, think about the hypocrisy. They had the hurrah, they had the cheers, they had the parade because Roe versus Wade was overturned. And I'm good with that. So we stopped killing babies, let's say for the most part. But do they have the same excitement? Do they have the same drive to stop mass killings? Because killings are killing.
That's right.
Whether it's the unborn or whether it's 19 kids or 26 kids in wherever or in Buffalo, where's the outcry for that? Look at the hypocrisy.
Look at the hypocrisy. Let me just ask a quick question. We only have 6 minutes left. If you had the power, how would you determine who carries a gun from who does not carry a gun?
Good question.
That's a real good question.
Because somebody's got to carry a gun. Who?
Let law enforcement, but you're going to say let law enforcement, but what about all the ghost guns and the illegal guns? It's going to still be around. It's like America is too far gone. It's like the point of no return. It's
like
how do we get 400 million guns off the street? How do we stop it with so much rights and so much things?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say one thing quick, Bishop Scott, if you put me, I know time is almost gone. The political climate in today's era, forget Republican, Democrat, right wing, left wing, they are spewing violence. If you listen to the January 6th committee, these people, oath keepers and all these different groups, Proud Boys, they were armed and strapped during the January 6th insurrection.
Yes, sir.
And you hear these political rallies. It's not like back when Reagan and these guys. It's a different tone.
Yes, sir.
You know where I'm coming from. It's a different tone. Punch him in the face. I'm going to pay for it. Knock him out. All these kind of things. So people and most of these young guys who killed, they went to these rallies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Background. So it's coming from on top, from way up.
Yes, sir. And also let me add that there is certainly a spirit behind it. And let me say that what we're experiencing now, don't feel bad with me, it is going to wax worse and worse. All of this is leading to the coming of Christ. Please go ahead, man of God, say it.
And Dr. Phil, you know what it is? I mean, I was going to say Dr. Phil, Bishop Scott. I lost my train of thought, man. Ooh, it's from me. Okay, go ahead.
It's going to wax worse and worse.
Oh, yeah, my thought was this. And the evangelical, they are supporting it.
Yeah.
No.
Stay quiet. Silence is complicit. They ain't saying nothing. We don't kill the unborn, but we're not saying nothing about violence.
That's it.
Let's put the insurrection behind us. Act like it didn't happen. These people on January 6th, they were tourists. Really?
Oh boy.
I would have had a hard time being a Christian today if I wasn't a Christian by the hypocrisy.
Yeah.
There is indeed a tremendous amount of hypocrisy, definitely, and it's manifesting, and we can see it. Even a blind person today can see it. Because really, honestly, there is a spirit behind it. Well, let me say this, that we got to touch question number 2, and I have at least another 15 questions to ask. But unfortunately, we only have 3 minutes left. We have talked the talk. Okay, we have said a lot and we have heard a lot. Now, what should we honestly take away from our conversation tonight? Dr. Ben, how say you, woman of God?
Mine is a wish or a desire, a dream, that those that we elect as officials to go to, whether it be the Congress or the Senate, would function for the true benefit of the Americans, of the people of America, and stop looking out for their own interest and interest groups.
Stop looking out for their own interest and their interest group. Well said indeed. Apostle Lucien, Rojas, what should we take away from tonight's conversation, sir?
Well, in order to make changes, Bishop Scott, I quote Obama, don't boo, vote. And I think we have to be more engaging. We have to be more engaging and just leave it up to the politicians and doing this, that, the other. We can go to the polls and make a difference.
We can go to the polls and make a difference. Okay, thank you much. Bishop Dr. Neville Wolliston, how say you, sir?
Yes, very simply, Bishop. We're living in a different world. It's only going to get worse. Prepare for it.
We are living in a different, things were not like this when we were kids, man of God. Certainly it wasn't.
Not at all.
Honestly, we would go to school, have a fist fight. The next day we would be eating fish and chips together, make up. But the world that we're living in now, it's like an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth.
Have a fight, next thing you go into a funeral.
Amen to that. Okay, Brother Lowe's more, man of God, what should we take away from tonight's conversation?
Well, I agree with all the panelists tonight. I hope that we were listening, right? Hope that the individuals here would take this show tonight, and share it, and cause for a dialogue in their homes. You show it to listen to it with your family, and have a discussion about the things that are going on, and be aware of all the things that are going on. And also, I've said the final takeaway is that in spite of all this that we've heard tonight and about the guns and violence and all that, remember that God is bigger than all this.
Amen. God is bigger than all of this.
This.
There was a time that we could go shopping and we would know or believe that we would get back into the house. But ladies and gentlemen, today we go shopping, we are not even assured that we'll get home. Okay, our topic tonight was the gospel truth on guns, violence in the churches, schools, and in public places. We do want to thank the lovely Dr. Dolores Ben. Thank God for the Apostle Lucien Rojas. Thank God for Bishop Dr. Neville Wolliston and our friend, our minister, Lowe's Moore, that came on tonight. Listen, I'm Bishop Scott saying, listen, it was a pleasure having you on the Bishop's Corner.